There's a book by Leonard Nimoy, the guy who played Spock in Star Trek, and he quotes somebody in his book who said, I have died many times, sometimes more than once, even in a single day. Every time I've said goodbye to my old self and embraced something new. And I'm paraphrasing that. He said it in the book I Am Spock, which he wrote. It's pretty good. Sort of a autobiography of a part of his life. In any case, today we're talking about forgiveness and how often it is required and necessary to forgive. Because when we talk about forgiveness, we often think about it in terms of something big that has happened, and then you have to kind of, forgive somebody and make up for whatever, and, you know, you have this sense of, um, you have this sense of, a big thing that's been, wrong, and then you have to make it right. But the truth is, forgiveness is about a lot more nuanced things than when someone does a significant transgression. Usually, forgiveness is actually much more minute. It's a lot of little things that all add up to. We have these, I guess, micro little bits of bitterness, I guess. I'll call it that. It's when somebody does something that you don't quite like, or they say something you didn't quite like, or maybe they don't even do anything that you take offense at. They just somehow have gotten on your nerves a little bit, and now you have it subconsciously in your mind, this sense that you are resentful. And you got to let those things go. It's hard to let them go, though, because sometimes you don't even realize that you have them. It's like micro inequities. People talk about that, and I guess, like, corporate woke speak, where they tell people about how to get along with each other in the workplace, and how to, avoid, like, racism and other stuff. Um, the general idea of micro inequities is that you do something that is not right to somebody, but you don't even really know it because you're not trying to do anything wrong. You just kind of have this subconscious feeling, and then that is impacting the way you behave, and then next thing you know it, you're doing things that you shouldn't be doing to somebody, and you're not really overtly trying to do it. You just sort of are doing it without intending to. Like, it's been said that people will hire people who are like they are instead of people who are different than they are. Like, they look for similar features and things like that because, we relate to people who are similar to us because we relate to them. So then that can create a situation where it's hard for people who are minorities or something because no one's really trying to discriminate against them. And yet the end effect winds up being basically that because people are all kind of, they're looking for folks that they feel familiar around. So then that excludes somebody. And they didn't really mean to. Well, anyway, so that be that what it may, that's not really what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is micro bitterness. We'll call it that. It's when you don't even necessarily put a lot of thought into being angry at someone or being bitter about something, and yet you are. And then you proceed to go through life with that sort of a lens of feeling like you kind of have something against somebody a little bit. And you're thinking, this person is, they're delusional, they're off the rails, their motivations aren't quite right. And we have all these feelings, we have these thoughts. We're judging people, we're irritated at people for whatever it is that's on our mind that seems, you know, totally wrong with them. And it's true, everybody has their demons. Everyone has their billboard that's hanging out there advertising whatever their flavor of fault is. But then so do we. I'm sure if I went out to the people who I'm the most quietly, internally critical of, and I said, and I wasn't me, I was just somebody, and I said, hey, what do you think about him? They probably would have plenty of things to say about me if they were totally candid and they could be totally transparent about their innermost thoughts. They probably would have a lot of things to say about what they think my personal demons are, my personal faults. Like, it's very easy for us to go down that path of judging other people, but we don't usually do it in a conscious way. It's not like we sit down and say, I'm going to make a list of everything I think that's wrong with everybody else. Let me just be as toxic as I possibly can be and make a list of all the things I hate about everybody. Like, no, we don't do that. We don't, try to live hateful, resentful, bitter lives. That's not what we do. We try to be decent people. That's the truth. But we also, in practice, wind up being pretty toxic to people in a very passive kind of a way. And they don't even know it. It's not like they would, these people, the other people in our lives that we have negative feelings toward or negative thoughts about, like they don't think that we hate them. They don't think that we're being, hostile to them or anything of the sort, because it's not like we really make that evident. But it still bears fruit. Like, if you're frustrated at somebody, even if you don't make a big deal out of it, you don't talk to other people about it even, you're just thinking that way, then you don't choose the path of optimism, the path of kindness, the path of building bridges instead of tearing them down. You continue to go down this path of being kind of sort of passive aggressive. You're nice to people's face, but then behind their back, maybe you're a little bit, more likely to almost root for them to fail or something because something about them didn't quite live up to what you wanted. Like, these are just things. These are things to be aware of and think about. Because when you think about it and you realize how often you have these thoughts of just casually wanting to judge somebody or being critical of someone for no reason, of assuming that you know why people are doing what they're doing without actually being in their shoes to really truly know. Like, people have reasons for what they do. And quite often, the reason for why someone does something or doesn't do something is not because of you. The world doesn't revolve around you. It's just because that's what they've done. That's like saying that animals in the forest are doing what they're doing because they got some kind of a vendetta against you, and so they're trying to plot to, do in your career. Like, no, they're not. Fox didn't get in the chicken house because it was trying to destroy your joy or ruin your livelihood or anything like that. It just went in there because there's chickens in there and it wanted to eat the chickens or the eggs or something. And we often take things personally. And we don't know the whole story. We don't know why people are doing what they're doing. We don't know why people act the way they act. We might know a little bit. We have some clues, maybe, as to why people do the things they do. But really, people are motivated by reasons, many reasons that are not us. And if you respect people, you have to understand that. And if you live your life being kind to people, being understanding of people, um, not expecting them to live up to your expectations, you're planting seeds that'll probably pay off down the road. Because seeds of kindness do have a way of paying off, and even if they don't pay off in the way you think that they will, they still pay off in the sense that good actions are always more likely to bear good fruit. So how do you get, though, past all of these negative feelings? How do you get past those subconscious tendencies to be maybe a little more toxic or judgmental or critical or harboring of bitterness than you ought to be? Well, you have to just embrace your nature. Like, you don't fight darkness with darkness. You have to embrace these feelings, because we go through our day and we have tons and tons of feelings that just kind of hit us like a barrage of just a little bit of anger. You're having a good day until somebody looked at you the wrong way, and now suddenly you're back on the horse thinking, some sort of a unkind thought about something. And if you're aware of it, then you can catch yourself and you can acknowledge the feeling, and then you can let it go and you can move on and you can say, okay, yes, this person's subconsciously gotten on my nerves, and I understand that and I acknowledge that, and I also forgive them, and I perhaps even forgive myself for thinking poorly of them too. And does that mean that you're perfect? No, it does not mean you're perfect, because you're still going to have those thoughts. You're still going to have the temptation to judge people. You're still going to have those countless moments when you start your day off thinking it's going to be a good day and I'm getting out on the right side of the bed and all that kind of thing, and then a little while into the day, before you know it, you're right back to being frustrated at somebody, or jumping to conclusions that aren't really fair or whatever. But you can still acknowledge them. You can deliberately think about them, consciously think about them, and then consciously and with your full consent allow them to flow by you, instead of being a reservoir for all of those negative thoughts and feelings. And maybe at the core of all of this is the message that it's okay to acknowledge that you're not perfect. Because if you're truly trying to be transcendent, you're trying to be above and beyond all those faults that make you human, you're never going to get there. Because you can't do that. That's the truth. You can't be more than the sum of your parts. You can't choose not to have human nature, because you are human. But you can choose what you do with that nature. You can choose the way you govern it. And you can choose what you allow to be harbored within you and what you choose to just allow to pass around you. And that's like standing in the water, in the river, and allowing the water to flow around you. You turn yourself sideways and you let the current flow around you. And it doesn't stop being a current, it's still there. But it doesn't knock you over and blow you away and take you off your feet. You can stay there, you can stand in the current because the main part of it is going around you. That's how it is with our emotions. Like, you're going to have those feelings. You're going to have all the things that you've always had. They're not going to go away. And that's how you beat them. That's how you master them. You you acknowledge them, and then you let them flow around you. And sometimes it's good. It's good to have negative feelings toward other people, because then you can analyze them. And you could say, I have these negative feelings toward other people. So maybe I'm in a better position by thinking through that to understand why other people have negative feelings toward me, why they do the things that they do. And then maybe I can be more understanding of them. Because I too go through similar emotions, similar feelings. So it's not like I'm good and they're bad. Like, we all have the same struggles, the same things that we are working through and experiencing, just in different context. But it's the same experience. And if I want people to understand me, then I guess I can understand them by looking within and realizing that a lot of the things that I struggle with, other people struggle with too. So even if somebody seems like they're hateful or unkind, you can also understand that they have their reasons. And then you don't like it, you don't endorse it, but you also don't necessarily take it personally, because it's not a slight against you. That's just where they're at. It's what they're working their way through. We all have our things to work through. So, just as I opened with that quote about dying many times in a single day, so I would say you also have to forgive many, many times every single day. Forgive yourself. Forgive other people. As a matter of fact, I think our whole lives have to be just a continual act of prayerful forgiveness, because almost always somebody is doing something that we have to forgive. And if they're not, we're doing something that we probably should surrender and also forgive ourselves for. The continual struggle to surrender things that we don't need. You surrender habits you don't need. You surrender financial things that are a burden in your life. You surrender bad relationships that are a burden in your life. And then we get to that final frontier of the mind. We have to start surrendering the mental baggage that we allow to exist, that we carry with us. Life is far too short for that. Far too short for harboring resentment and frustration and anger at everybody. And that goes for all the things that we think are actually fun, like talking about people behind their back and being armchair gods and generals, analyzing everybody's shortfalls and acting like we're an expert on the human condition. Truth is, there's a lot of things that we do that we think are fun and we don't mean any harm by them, but they don't build people up. They're not kind. They're not edifying. They're not spiritually uplifting. They're our way of contributing to our own sense of self-importance at the expense of somebody else. And there really shouldn't be any benchmark in your life that's based on somebody else. How am I doing ranked up against this other person? Well, that's not really how you should look at life. You should look at life using yourself as a benchmark. How am I doing today versus yesterday? How am I doing compared to how I was doing? Compared to what my best was, am I doing better or worse? We should always be competing against ourselves, trying to be better than we were yesterday. Not competing against others so that we can measure up just a little bit better. Not looking at that sinner off over in the corner saying, oh my goodness, look at that poor sinner. I'm so glad that I'm not like he is. So we're all sinners. Looking for somebody that's got a bigger stain than we do so that we can build ourselves up on a pedestal and say, we have some justification or right to be resentful toward others because we're apparently that good. Or not. Just mind your own business and enjoy your life. Is that asking too much? You know, you don't have to have any big goals in life to do great things. If you want to know the truth is that you're probably not going to do a lot of great things in your life by achieving amazing things in your career or anything like that. You're going to achieve greatness by doing spiritual good in your life. By being that person who uplifts other people, by being that person who's always kind, by being a source of inspiration instead of criticism, by taking the path that's moderate and kind and respectful instead of the hard-line approach that's abrasive and aggressive. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't take pride in what you do. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't value the things you do in your life. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't have expectations. You should always do what you need to do to get the job done. Sometimes you have to hold people accountable for executing and delivering results. There's all sorts of things that we have to do in our lives. I'm not saying you don't do your duty, but I'm talking about what's inside you, what's motivating you to do that. Do you get a sense of pride and joy and glory out of putting other people down? Or is that a sobering, humbling thing that you would try to avoid? You know, these are the things that you should ask yourself. I think there's altogether too many situations in our lives where no matter what our vocation in life is, we kind of start to root against people and we say, hey, you know, I told you so. Oh, you're not doing good? Well, maybe you should have listened before, you know? Serves you right. Better you than me, right? I think like we do that. And would we like it if other people did that to us? No. Maybe that's why we do it to other people. because we kind of think to ourselves, well, other people are going to laugh at us when we fail, so we can't keep them from doing that. So I guess if that's how the world works, then we might as well try to get the last laugh, right? But isn't there a saying, an eye for an eye will leave the whole world blind? When we start to return evil for evil because we just give up on the notion that there is such a thing as kindness as a general rule, or a middle way that's fair and equitable for all. We just we give up all of these utopian ideals, and we start just being, I guess, trying to return to the primitive, to say, you know what, we should all just go club it out and see who can win. Well, maybe not. Maybe we shouldn't go back to the caveman days of beating our chests and an eye for an eye. Maybe we should instead choose to see good in the world and try to do good in the world. That seems like a better plan. And it starts by learning to forgive others very frequently, very often. It's better to forgive many, many small things over and over again than it is to let them build up until you have a lot of big things that you need to forgive. It's been said, let he who is without sin among us be the first one to cast a stone. That is the best way to teach kindness, isn't it? To realize how much you need kindness. You need kindness in your life, probably far too much, to afford making the world a less kind place by being a vicious person inside. And what do you lose? What do you lose by wishing all people well? Do you lose anything? Like, how do you lose by being a kind person? You think there's a lot of guys who are out there laid out dying, and they're thinking, man, I just wish I was a little more of an asshole. I wish I was a little more unkind to people. You know? I wish I fired a few more people in my career. Just laying out there, breathing their last. You got a few minutes left to live. You're thinking about your life as it goes by. And man, I just wish I made people's lives just a little more hell while I was healthy and young. No, that's not how it works. The end of people's lives, if they're lucky enough to fade out at the end of their lives and be able to think about things on their way out, people don't do that. People get contemplative and they start thinking about all the things that they could have done differently that would have been more meaningful, more kind, more patient, more forgiving. Like all those positive spiritual things, whether you're a Stoic or a agnostic or a Christian or Buddhist or Catholic or whatever the heck you are, I think pretty much no matter who you are, most of the different philosophies rationally lead us back to the concept that being kinder and more forgiving is probably the best path you can choose. So, good luck with that. That's my challenge. Every single day, that's my challenge. To do a little bit better job of being that kind, forgiving person than I did the day before. Till next time, thank you for watching, and goodbye.